Okay, so welcome back. Yet another how to play Dungeons and Dragons 5e Sorcerer basics video. And the format for this is probably going to be a little bit different in the future, but we are going to get straight into this in about 1 minute. I'm going to give just people time to jump into the room before I start. This is probably going to take me, I'm hoping to aim for 10 minutes. But I suspect it could take slightly longer just because of the nature and just the way things are worded in the book. It's not very easy to explain things when the book is very vague and leaves a lot up to the dungeon master to explain or to decide how it's going to work, which can be part of the problem. So we are going to get started in a second. There it is, and a transfer over. Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're talking about how to play D&D 5e or how to play Dungeons and Dragons 5e, and this is the basics video for the Sorcerer, and we are covering video number 5, I believe, and today I'm going to talk about the sorceress origins, and there are 2 different types of sorceress origins in the player's handbook, 2 options available to you: the draconic bloodline, which we've already talked about, and today I'm going to cover wild magic. I will be discussing wild magic primarily in this video, so if you want information and details as we go, then open your player's handbook to page 103 of the player's handbook, and there is a section on wild magic, including a chart on the back of that, which I believe is page 104. So please make sure you've sort of got an idea of how the wild magic chart or surge chart works, because it's quite complicated, and really the entire class is built around this chart, and it's also heavily dependent on the dungeon master, and I would also say very dependent on the players at your table. So please, as always, I've said it before, please check with your dungeon master and the other people that you play with at your table before you select wild magic as an option for your sorcerer, simply because a lot of the features of wild magic are dependent on a dungeon master making the decision to allow you to do that. And if you don't check with them, you might find yourself with a lemming, simply unable to play the character you had hoped to play, simply because the dungeon master said no. So I would have to say that this is probably one of the worst character class archetypes in my opinion. It's my opinion, okay? If you're upset by that, I understand, but I personally think it is not as good as some of the other classes in terms of how it works. It's often picked up by people who really want to play a sorcerer who's very elemental in nature, and there's a lot of flavor tied into it, and they want to be sort of primeval or just raw power and energy. Or it's also played by somebody who wants to just mess with the dungeon master or the players at their table, or play a game which will throw a lot of spanners in the works, or just a lot of confusion. That's not necessarily a bad thing, provided you've got dungeon masters and players who are open to that way of playing. If they are open to that, it's not going to be an issue. So wild magic comes from the forces of chaos, which are underlying creation. So that might be from just raw magic, it might be from the elemental planes. I've provided you with an image of a black hole. It could be from that. It could be from the far realms. You could have your sorcerer marked by a demon of some kind, or blessed by Fae. It doesn't have to be of an evil nature whatsoever. It could simply be just a fluke of birth. Now I'm going to pull up and show you the wild magic surge table, because it's using the percentile dice. There's quite a lot of options, and the entire wild magic sorcerer is tied and identified by this chart. If you can't use this chart, really playing a wild magic user is going to be, well, it's just not going to be fun. It's going to be lackluster. There aren't a lot of features that you get with your wild magic as it is that are really cool. So if you can't use that chart, it's going to really suck. And as I said, it requires the Dungeon Master to allow you to use that chart, which is why I think it's one of the more annoying archetypes to play for a player because of that particular reason. So I'm going to go through each of the features so you can see what I'm talking about, and then I'm going to break them down and answer some very common questions that players have, also Dungeon Masters might have regarding that particular feature. So Wild Magic Surge, you start with this when you're at level 1 Sorcerer. Your spell casting can unleash a surge of untamed magic, okay? Once per turn, now remember this, once per turn, the DM can have you roll a 20-sided dice immediately after you cast a sorceress spell of 1st level or higher, so it doesn't apply to cantrips. If you roll a 1 on the 20-sided dice, roll on the Wild Magic Surge table, which means you're going to use your percentile dice to figure out what the effect will be. And you create a magical effect by doing so. If that effect is a spell, it is too wild to be affected by metamagic. So if you're using metamagic that turn, it's not going to be affected by your metamagic in any way, shape or form. And if it is normally requiring concentration, the type of spell that's activated by your Wild Magic Surge table, then it does not require concentration by you in this particular circumstance. The spell lasts its full duration, okay, so you don't need to want to worry about concentrating on it if it is coming from your Wild Magic Surge table, that actual table when you roll for it and it actually comes up. So there are a few things that I think are problematic with the Wild Magic Surge at 1st level. And one of the most common things that come up is that the DM can simply ignore that chart and say, no, I think that's just going to be too much. It's too overpowered, it's going to create too many different problems, I don't want it at my table. Another thing I've talked about is players often get very nervous about this particular wild magic because of the effect it can have at low level. At higher levels it's really not too much of an issue, but at low level, if you get the worst result, and the worst result is fireball centered on you, and it's probably going to wind up encompassing the entire party, level 1 party decimated by fireball in the very first opening rounds. That would be a bad result. And the best result you can get from your table is that you're going to get to become reincarnated if you perish. But there's a very short time frame around that when it's activated. You can use this particular feature, if the Dungeon Master allows you, when you use your action to cast a spell that's 1st level or higher, or a bonus action, or when you're casting a spell that is a reaction. So it's possible for you to use this on your turn and also have it activate on somebody else's turn as a reaction, which makes it quite cool. But here's the problem. You have to roll a 20-sided dice, and if you roll a 1 on the 20-sided dice, then you get to go to the chart and see what feature will come up. And that's 1 in 20 chance. It's not very common. It's actually not common at all. That means for every 20 spells that you cast at 1st level or higher, you're going to be able to probably wind up rolling on the chart. And that's it. No more than that. It's not very much. And at 1st level, you're going to get 2 spells at 1st level. You use those and you get 2 chances. You roll your 20-sided dice. Chances are you will not roll a 1 on the 20-sided dice. And so you won't get to use that chart. So that kind of sucks. The table itself, most of it is positive. Some of it could go either way, and about 1/3 to 1/4 of the chart consists of really bad stuff that could happen, or stuff that will take you completely out of a battle or fight. So just bearing that in mind, it's not necessarily the end of playing that sort of character. it's a real big risk, which is part of the reason why it's called wild magic. Okay, next is Tides of Chaos. So starting at first level, you can manipulate the forces of chance and chaos to gain advantage on one attack roll, or an ability check, or a saving throw. Now when it says ability check, that also relates to a skill check, okay? Ability checks and skill checks are essentially the same thing, they're just calculated differently. Now once you do so, you must finish a long rest before you can use this feature again. So it's not overpowered, it's actually a reasonable feature, it's available at level 1, so I thought it's not a bad feature for a class compared to something like Wild Magic Surge. But here it goes on a little bit more, there's a little bit more information to it. Any time before you regain the use of this feature, the DM can have you roll on the Wild Magic Surge table immediately after you cast a sorcerer spell of first level or higher. Now one of the things to notice is that it does not stipulate that you need to roll that 20-sided dice and get a 1 on the dice. There's no indication whatsoever that you need to do that. It is still very dependent on the Dungeon Master saying, yes you can. I would say, given the power of this feature, which is alrightish, it would be nice if it happened more often. So if you're a Dungeon Master, allowing them to do that would be great, particularly at low level, because they're really not going to get to use that feature very often. But if you do allow it, the chances are that every time they cast a spell, they're going to get that ability to roll advantage on their attack rolls, ability checks, saving throws, and skill checks literally every single round until they run out of spells that are first level or higher. That's the only drawback with that I can see. So that is the Tides of Chaos. After that we have Bend Luck. I kind of like the idea of Bend Luck, and the reason being is, one, it's gained at 6th level Sorcerer, but also the sorts of bonuses that you can use, it's really flexible. This is why I like Bend Luck. So you have the ability to twist fate and use your wild magic when another creature, now it could be an ally, it could be hostile, another creature can see, you've got to see them. If you can see that creature, whether it's an ally or hostile, if you can see them make an attack roll or an ability check or a saving throw, you can use your reaction and spend 2 sorcery points and roll a 4-sided dice and apply the number rolled to whatever check they're making. So if it's an ability check or a saving throw or an attack roll, you can add whatever you rolled on the 4-sided dice to that number, or you can apply it as a penalty. It's your choice, you decide, and you apply it to that creature's dice roll. That's somebody else's dice roll, which is quite cool. You can do this so long you can do this so long as the creature doesn't know the effect, or the player doesn't know the effect. So you've got to make sure you roll that 4-sided dice or use your Bend Luck before the outcome of the check is given to you by the Dungeon Master. So you have to be quick. So you need to have that D4 ready and say, hang on, DM, I want to use Bend Luck, so I'm going to roll a 4-sided dice and I'm going to apply this as a penalty or a bonus to whoever's dice roll it was. So you need to be very, very fast when you're using Bend Luck. Otherwise, you're going to get it. It'll be gone and done before you get a chance. And I've seen that happen at my table so many times, where people have tried to use this feature and they just haven't been quick enough before the outcome of the spell has already been determined by the Dungeon Master, or the player has already determined it. That's one of the hassles with that particular feature. But you know, it's one of those things. You just got to be quick and fast off the bat. Okay, next is Controlled Chaos, and you get that at 14th level Sorcerer, and you gain a modicum of control over the surges of your wild magic. So when you roll on the Wild Magic Surge table, you can roll twice and use either number. So when you roll those percentile dice, you're going to do it twice, and you can pick either result. And this is to avoid all of the nasty effects that you might pick up, or the ones that could go either way depending on the situation. I think that's a reasonable feature, but yet again it is dependent on Wild Magic Surge. It's also dependent on the Wild Magic Surge table and your Dungeon Master allowing you to actually use that feature in the game. Controlled Chaos. It's a nice idea as long as you can use the Wild Magic Surge table. Okay, so the last feature, which I think is, I mean, the name itself, Spell Bombardment, sounds really impressive. It sounds absolutely fantastic, and it doesn't seem that fantastic when you actually read through and understand what's taking place. So beginning at 8th level, you get Spell Bombardment. The harmful energy of your spells is going to be intensified. When you roll damage for a spell and roll the highest number possible on any of the dice, choose one of those dice, roll it again, and add that to the roll for the damage. Okay, so essentially what that is doing is, if you cast something like Fireball, which is 8 6-sided dice, and you get a 6 on one of those dice, you get to roll one of those dice again, and that is going to be added to your damage. Okay? So that is going to be added to your damage. Make sure you pick up a dice, okay, which got a low number on it. It actually won't matter too much. I mean, you can pick up another dice and you roll it, okay? So you add up all the damage on the dice, and you roll another dice, and you add that to your damage. Very, very simple. You can use this feature only once per turn. Now that is pretty awesome, provided you can roll the highest number on a dice. So Spell Bombardment would work really well with a spell where you are casting many dice. If you're rolling heaps and heaps of dice, there's a good chance you'll get the highest number on the damage dice on one of them at some point, and therefore you'll get to roll another dice and add that to your damage. So it's not a bad feature, but only really effective if you're rolling heaps and heaps of dice all at once. So that is the basic gist of the wild magic for the Sorcerer. I didn't really want to go into this too much, but if you found this helpful or informative, please share and like the video. If you're not subscribed, then now is a good time to subscribe. If you're not notified of when I post videos, so when I publish a new video or I'm going to do a live stream, you'll be notified if you click the bell button beside the subscribe button on my channel, or underneath the video there's usually a bell button that you can click, and that will let you know via email that I'm going to be either producing a video and published it just recently, or I'm about to go live, or I'm going to be going live at a certain time. So that is really going to be really helpful. I go live so much, so it could be really, really helpful for those people who are not familiar with my channel. Now I will answer questions in the chat, so don't run away for those people who want to hang around and ask questions. If you have questions, please put them down in the comments if you're not part of the live stream. If you want to support my channel, watch my videos. I find that really helpful. I get a bit of ad revenue from that. If you really want to support my channel, down in the description there are affiliate links. Clicking on that and buying stuff online, I get a small commission. You pay exactly the same price, and it's probably the best way to support my channel if you're really serious. I don't do Patreon. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. In fact, on the 20-sided dice, you want to be rolling a 1 in this situation, because we're dealing with the Wild Magic Surge table, right? Okay, I am going to answer questions, and I will, oh, how's it going? Keanu, what's up with you? So a lot of these videos have been becoming longer and longer and longer, and I keep finding myself regurgitating or explaining stuff that gets more complicated. And this is probably going to be, I'm going to be toning that down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to present less content and provide you with time, just like I've always done with my live streams, an opportunity to ask questions about the Sorcerer in this case, or any character class. If you're a player and you have questions, I'll answer those questions as well. Okay, absolutely happy to answer questions. If you're a dungeon master and you have questions, and it doesn't have to be about the sorcerer or the topic I'm talking about, it's just to give you an open forum so that at least like once a day, almost every day, I will be able to answer questions you might have, because I know that I don't always do content that everybody wants. So what I wanted to do is just quickly, while I'm waiting for people to put questions or comments into the live chat box, I just wanted to go over the wild magic feature for the sorcerer, because I gave it quite a hard time, and sometimes that's a little bit unfair. I have seen it used really well in a game. If you've got a dungeon master who's on board and going to let you use that wild magic surge table, it's quite fun, and it really works nicely when the player has a character with the ability to cast lots and lots of magic. So at low level it's not very impactful. But at higher levels there's a much better chance that they're going to get a chance to actually use that wild magic surge table. So that's one of the great things about it. So I just wanted to just show you, just think about it. Level 1, I've got a 20-sided dice in my hand, and as I said, when you roll that dice and you've cast your spell at level 1 or higher, I've only got 2 spells. So I just rolled 1 dice for 1 spell, and the DM said yes, I could do it. Great. I got a 15, so no wild magic. I rolled an 11. So this whole day, no wild magic at level 1. Okay? So I rolled 2 dice, nothing. That's 3 dice, 4 dice rolled, 5, 6, 7. You get the point. Okay? This is why I don't like the wild magic surge feature. I feel like having to roll a 1 on a 20-sided dice is just not enough. I think if you're going to use this, it's better off to let them roll on the table every single time they cast a spell of level 1 or higher, provided the dungeon master and your players are on board for the after effect. Okay? And eliminating that 20-sided dice roll and trying to get a 1 on it so you can use your wild magic surge table is then not an issue. You ditch that idea completely. I just wanted to go over that briefly so that people could see how you could do it. I did this in my game. It made a lot more sense. It was a lot more fun for me, for the player who was playing the character, and to be fair, he was trying to throw a spanner in the works, but it actually backfired on him. He thought he would be able to sabotage the party, and the outcome actually turned out to save their butt more than a few times, and actually was really, really helpful to them, particularly at higher levels. So it's a good thing to do. I just wanted to point that out. Okay, so Tides of Chaos. The ability to roll 2 dice and have advantage, and you're only going to get to do this, it's not very often, right? You're going to have to take a long rest every time you do it, but rolling advantage on an attack roll, a saving throw, or an ability check, or a skill check is pretty good. So I would say it would be nice if there's only so many spells that they can cast at low level. I would, as I was talking with the wild magic surge table, allow them to do it every single time they actually use a spell of first level or higher. Don't use it for cantrips, that will cause problems. But that means they're going to get at least 2 rolls of advantage during their adventuring day before they use up their spells, for first level. As they go up, they'll get more. I think it's actually not a reasonable thing unreasonable thing to do. It does state, as I said, that there's no requirement from the player or the DM to specify that a dice roll of a 20-sided dice is required to activate that wild surge table for the Tides of Chaos. But I think it makes sense, because then they get back, if they have to roll on the wild magic surge table, they get back the ability to roll advantage on the attack roll, the saving throw, or an ability check. So it's not a bad feature. I think it's worth encouraging. Otherwise, wild magic is just sucks. It really does. Okay, so bend luck. One of the things I found is one of my players would literally have in his hand a 4-sided dice every single time he wanted to use this. And what he would do is he'd be watching for a roll, listening to what people said, and then he had to quickly roll and say, look, I want to use Ben Luck. So there's a problem, because it does slow down play, particularly if you know somebody's using that ability and you sort of wanted to wait and give them time to respond. So it is a slight hassle in terms of implementing it in your game. Okay, so controlled chaos, this is when you're going to just be rolling twice with your percentile dice on the Wild Magic Surge table. I think it's not a bad feature, provided that the person's going to get to roll on the Wild Magic Surge table quite often. Otherwise, it's almost a joke. Almost completely a joke in terms of a feature, unless you are able to use the Wild Magic Surge table more often. Next, spell bombardment. So what I wanted to do is just explain, imagine you're casting your fireball at its lowest level, okay? And you've got 8 6-sided dice. Here they are. So you roll those dice. I have to roll a 6 on one of these dice to be able to activate and use my spell bombardment, okay? If I don't roll a 6, there's no option to do so. Which is not such a bad idea, considering you could literally do this every single turn of play if you wanted to, and there's no requirement to take a long rest or a short rest to recharge it. It's always going to be active, okay? But it's not going to be very effective if you're only going to be getting to roll like 1 or 2 dice. If you're using it on a cantrip, even at 18th level, there's still probably not enough dice being rolled to be effective, particularly as you're probably rolling a dice which is either an 8-sided dice or a 10-sided dice, because for me I would probably be going for something like Ray of Frost or Firebolt if I'm playing something like a Sorcerer, just so I can push out more damage and have a greater effect on the outcome of my game. That's just how I am. Of course, you don't have to do it that way, but you're not rolling a 6-sided. It's easier to roll a 6 on a 6-sided dice than it is to roll a 8 on an 8-sided dice or a 10 on a 10-sided dice. So just remember, the probabilities of actually getting to use spell bombardment require you to really use dice that have fewer sides and to roll as many dice of that nature as you possibly can. Okay, I think that covers it. I don't see anybody else. No more questions for today, which is excellent, because now I have to disappear and get myself organised because I'm running a game. We are going back to the cafe finally. I'm going to get to run my adventure, Zenith Nights, and it'll be back in the Dandy Cafe of all names. So look, till next time, you guys have a good day, and I'll see you later.